empowering you to build better lives. That's what we do. Well, welcome to season 2 of the Empower podcast. I'm so excited to be sitting here with my good friend and mentor. We'll get into that here, Dan McCormick, multi-year team lead, over 20 years as team elite, one of the fastest to ever achieve that position, Dan. But more than that, you're just a phenomenal guy, and you were born to do exactly what we're about to do here. So thank you for being here.
It's an honor to be here. It's a lot of fun to talk to the people in the world of New Skin.
It's going to be
always
good. No, it's absolutely going to be good, Dan. And I'm excited to jump into this. So we're just going to take some time. This is a new set. Mics are getting a little weird here, so I hope I don't hit it. But let's just start with your story, Dan. Like, tell us a little bit. Maybe to back up a little bit. I know you as a very strong leader. You're also an investor. You're also a leadership coach, a mentor. You're an author now. You're a great family man. You love to golf. You love fitness. Like, we could keep going. But tell us a little bit about you and your background.
Yeah, well, it really all starts with my wife. I mean, that's just where it started. I was a young man growing up. I know that we have some basketball fans in the culture here, and I worked for the Seattle Supersonics as a kid. So I worked in the tennis club. I made $2.35 an hour. Got raises to $2.75, and then one of the club members invited me to be a laborer, and I got a raise to $5 an hour. Being a
Big
laborer,
time.
building tennis courts.
Okay.
And then I went off to Washington State University, so that they're the Cougars, right?
Yep.
There's another color of Cougars here in town in Provo.
Purple. Purple's good, yeah.
So I went to Washington State University, and I lasted for 2 weeks. So I call it finishing school in 2 weeks. A lot of people would call it dropping out, but for me, I had to look at it as a positive.
Yeah, for sure.
So I finished, went home, back to building tennis courts at $6 an hour the next summer, and there was an ad in the newspaper that just rocked my world.
Okay.
This is kind of like, this was the social media of 1982.
Yeah.
And the ad said, "Are you making what you're worth?" And I stared at that ad because they were looking for supervisory position people in the health and nutrition industry.
Okay.
And I lived in a health club.
Yeah.
I worked in a tennis club, and I loved everything about health. So I finally called this ad, and this individual interviewed me over the phone and then in person, then invited me to a meeting, then gave me some cassette training tapes. My life changed in an instant. Within days of that, I met my upline. 8 months later, I married my upline. And it's been a pretty amazing 41 years in the industry.
That's fantastic. So tell us a little bit. So you were into sports. How were you raised? Your mom, your dad? Like, what kind of mindset did you have coming up as a kid?
Great question, because I had no self-esteem. Yeah. I had no self-worth. I had no idea how to read a book. Reading was hard. Testing was hard. I was really on the struggle bus when it came to school. And that's why I finished college in 2 weeks' time, or most people would call dropping out. But I just didn't really know how to function in that environment. My brain didn't really work there. But you put me on the tennis court, you want to teach me something there, you put a sports statistical thing in front of me, my brain would light up. My mom taught me to read the sports page, and that's really where I kind of grew to comfort. And from there, it was the first book put in my hands when I got in the industry, and that was The Greatest Salesman in the World by Og Mandino.
Yep.
And that was the beginning, baby. It was on then.
Yep. So what did you love about that book? And by the way, I'm rereading it, and because of our discussion a month or so ago, rereading it, and I was like, and I wanted to ask you this question.
I think it's a great question because I didn't know how to love. And so I didn't know that Og wrote that book from the paradigm of an alcoholic. I didn't know at the time that he had an estranged wife and daughter that didn't want to talk to him. I didn't know that he stood on a Cleveland freezing street corner one night looking in a pawn shop window, pondering if he should take that $20 bill out of his wallet and buy that gun. That's pretty heavy.
Yeah, very heavy.
And he said, "There's a light and a door open down the street a little bit here. Maybe I'll go in there." And it was a library. And he went in, and he went to the self-help section. This is, we're talking the late 60s now, 67 or so. And he learned about W. Clement Stone, who at the time was Combined Insurance Corporation of America, owner of Success Magazine, huge proponent of self-help, great friends with all the icons, the Norman Vincent Peales, the W. Clement Stones, and the Think and Grow Rich, Ogs, et cetera, and were up and coming. And so that book had a scroll. There's 10 scrolls in that book. The second scroll says, "I will greet this day with love in my heart." I didn't know what that meant. I didn't know what the different levels of love were, and that's really coming at it from a brotherly love, a Philadelphia, philia. Sure. And so I learned that, and for the better part of 40 years of my career, I woke up to thinking, I will greet this day with love in my heart. Because it was so hard for me. My dad didn't know what that was. He might not even know the name of my grandkids, or the name of my kids, rather. So love was a big, big deal, and I just figure in building a network marketing culture, love and gratitude are just two huge components.
So many ways we could go into that, but what I love about what you just said, what connects with me is my upbringing, and I've talked a little bit about that. My grandfather, who gave me a book, Power of Positive Thinking by Norman Vincent Peale, when I was 13, and reading that every morning. This is the day which the Lord hath made. I shall rejoice and be glad in it. Say it 8 times before you get out of bed.
Wow.
And I did that from 13. I still do that. I don't do it 8 times a day, but I'll say it at least once or twice a morning before I get out of bed. And partially because it was all about, for me, just having anxiety about the morning. And I don't know what that has always been since I was a young kid, but I relate to what you're saying. Can we ask a little bit about your father? Because I think it's important to talk about where did we come from, to talk about the man you are now and how did you get there?
So my dad was, I like to say that my mom and dad had kids because they made babies. They didn't have a desire of this, hey, let's build a family. Let's build memories, And so my brother and I are just two, young boys that grew up liking sports, with a father that was athletic, a mother that was somewhat athletic, but neither one of them, really did well in school either. My father actually went on to have a very, very successful career and did unbelievable things in the world of business. Didn't know how to share it, didn't know how to affirm other people. And that was a big thing for me, is he never learned how to say, hey, how are you, son? How you doing? Just want to tell you I'm proud of you. I love you. All of those little things that I love to say. And I love what you said about those first words that you think about in the morning, because I thought anxiety too. Every day was kind of this anxiety. Unless I was in my space on the tennis court, it was anxiety.
Well, and I think that's, I used to beat myself up about anxiety, you wondering what's wrong, but I've kind of reinterpreted that in my head of anxiety is the better me trying to get out, right? It's telling me I need to do better, be better, become better. But let's dive into self-help, because you are, for lack of a better term, you are a walking encyclopedia of self-love, self-help, self-development. And I think we'll get to the book in a moment because I love it. But talk about that journey. You went from this kid who didn't have a lot of self-confidence, didn't know your self-worth, all of that, and something clicked, as you said, that just turned you on. That book, what was the ignition point as you look back in your life? Why has that become such a driving force, this self-development for you in your life? Like, what motivates that?
So Og gives everybody an interesting invitation. I think he used the word challenge. I prefer the word invitation at the beginning of The Greatest Secret in the World, which is the journalized version. And so he says, I am going to give you 75-1 odds that you'll even read these scrolls and follow the protocol. So he kind of learned that from Ben Franklin. Ben Franklin had the 13 virtues. And, when you think Ben Franklin, 13 virtues, one virtue at a time for a week, and then do that for the subsequent 64 years of your life. Incredible. And so Og writes these scrolls and he says, will you read them 3 times a day, but will you read the final one aloud? We'll come back to that later. And he says 75-1 odds that you'll do this, and I'm quoting the book now, to potentially double and triple your income in the next year. And that's 1968, 1970 timeframe, right? And so I took that seriously, and I had incredible results. And I remember walking into a meeting one night, and this individual walked up to me and he violated my airspace. When people just get so close, really uncomfortable. And he said, what's different about you? What are you doing? And he just wouldn't let up. And I wasn't sure. Here I am, 22 years old. And I said, well, I read The Greatest Salesman in the World every day. And he stepped back completely relaxed and he said, that's it. Now I know what's different about you. And so my wife had Stephen Covey as a professor here in Provo. 7 Habits was part of my curriculum before it was ever a book, because my wife, we had the audio cassette tapes. And so it just became this idea that readers are leaders. leaders are readers, readers are leaders. You can say it either way.
Yeah.
And I know you've just got this incredible love affair with reading, and I just feel like books are so undervalued. Jim Rohn said that, and I had the good fortune of traveling the world with him as a young man, and he obviously was a huge inspiration there as well. But he said, it's amazing how a successful individual can say, hey, I just read this book and it changed my life. And then Jim, in his slow drawl, would say, and how many people go out and buy that book?
Yeah.
Very few.
Yeah.
And that's just a mystery of life, he says. And so I just got this my wife and I have a running joke at our house. It's like, okay, how many books is Amazon delivering today?
Yeah.
Because I only need a word, a phrase, a paragraph, a sentence, something that can just wow me.
Yeah.
And so I've just been on this path, and I think the fact that Covey was such a huge fan of reading and he really loved Man's Search for Meaning.
Yep.
And that to me was the first book I read when COVID hit.
Yep.
And
Viktor Frankl, right?
Viktor Frankl, it'll change you.
Jeff and I were talking about this on Monday.
Yeah, it'll change the paradigm of your life.
In fact, I've been reading it, so I read. And in fact, I have a quote here. But Dan, before I get there, you talking about, you said I didn't do very well in school, but you put a statistic in front of me, and you have a photographic memory when it comes to self-help. Like, you quote more authors, and like, you blow me out of the water when you quote. No, I'm serious. Like, I just acknowledge it. So there's something in your brain when you see something that impacts you, you don't forget it. It's literally almost photographic. But so this was a quote. In fact, I read it on a call we had this morning. So Seneca. So I was reading Seneca, right? And there's been this, for me, I heard several years ago, read as many books as you can, and for me, it's actually all a part of my never enough journey or not enough journey that isn't from my childhood that I'm continuing to overcome with reading. But I've been ingesting a lot of books over the last 4, 5, 6 years, and I try to read as many as possible. And then I heard the Seneca quote, and I'd love to get your thought on it. He says, "Be careful lest this reading of many authors and books of every sort may tend to make you discursive and unsteady. You must linger among a limited number of master thinkers, digest their work, and if you would derive ideas which shall win firm in your mind, everywhere means nowhere."
Yeah.
And this idea of finding those books that actually change you forever and ingesting those books, for me, is my 2025 reading resolution, as opposed to, hey, I want to read a book a week, which was what I was on for the last few years too. I actually want to read the books that are going to change my life, right? And we're going to get to this I Am one in just a second. But what is your thought there? So you read massively, but when you said I only look for,
I'm looking for the wow factor.
Yeah, the one line.
I bought at the convention 30 months ago in Salt Lake City.
Yeah.
And I walk in and there's Brittany Cornine and Marie Stott across from the table. I'm registering for the event, and they sell the Miracle Morning book by Hal Elrod with a journal. And I said, all right, I'll buy the book. And this is where I was. This really brings it full circle. I was on a plateau. I was in pain. I just didn't know what wasn't working in my life. Now, most of the world would look at me and say, hey, he's fine. I'm on my golf course. I'm on my boat. I'm in Lake Coeur d'Alene.
If you're on a plateau, I want to be on your plateau.
But I was on a serious plateau that you wouldn't have known about.
Yeah.
And when I picked up Hal's book and I read the 3 imperative arguments that he has in that book, it was like,
which are, by the way,
game on. Okay, well, first of all, you have to know the 3 imperative arguments. So you have to be able to wake up every single morning and know that you're just as worthy, deserving, and capable as anyone else on the planet.
Yeah.
Like every team elite, every aspiring, mission-driven entrepreneur watching right now has to be able to go through the process, the psychological process that says I'm just as deserving, worthy, and capable as anyone else on the planet. And in that book, he said he did a documentary. So we flew home from the convention, my wife and I, Sunday night. I said, honey, he has a documentary. Let's watch the documentary. Instantly, I said, this is one of the most genuine guys on the planet. I'm all in. So the next morning, my life changed intuitively. Frequency changed, vibration changed, energy changed, attention changed, everything changed that morning. And then I decided to start writing the book. Or I'd kind of had the idea. And I didn't know Hal, who wrote the foreword to the book. I didn't know Ken Shelton, who wrote 7 Habits and Principles Under Leadership with Covey. I didn't know Ben Hardy, who wrote the afterword to the book. I didn't know how I was going to write a book, but I knew I could manifest all of it. And so I have just gone full circle on the idea that I drill down on nuggets.
Yeah.
And what's interesting to me is I think I mastered his book. It lived with me. Bob Proctor said something brilliant one time, and he actually takes this book stand on his counter.
Yeah.
And he'll take a book, if you don't mind, I'll just open this. He'll take a book, and it just sits on the counter on the book stand with holding it open. And he says, just leave it open on that page until you get it. If you don't got that principle and it's going to change your life, just leave it right there. And so the day I saw that, I bought 2 book stands. You know, because I have so many books that are open. I want to be able to completely metabolize the principle and say, how does this impact my life?
That's powerful. And until it literally, you ingest it and it becomes you. Which, by the way, and maybe we start to transition in, because I want to spend a little more time on this. But so it was maybe a year ago that you and I had a conversation where you unveiled that you were going to write a book.
2 years ago.
Was it 2 years ago? Okay, so time flies. And at the time, you were just starting the journey. But we had a discussion around where is this journey going to take you? And at that point in time, you actually said, I need to become the book.
Yeah.
Right? And this was part of this, okay, you've spent 40 years getting to the point where you are today, learning all of these things. It's time for you to do something more. You said you had gone to this plateau. You needed to turn it up. You come across the Miracle Morning. That shapes you. Connect the dots from that point to I need to go write a book.
Yeah.
And become the book. What is that journey? Because I think that's like leveling up, right? You're in a plateau now. It's like I got to go do something to level up. Help me get there.
So I'm going to take you inside my master bedroom at my house. Okay. My wife sits like where Blanca's sitting, right?
Okay.
And this is us sitting across the room.
Yep.
And this is the Dan and Marilyn chat every day. And I said, I think I want to write a book. And man, I might break down here. She says, you want to do what? She says, why would you want to do that? And I said, because I think the world needs more light. Can we bring more light to the world? Now, I didn't know how that was going to turn out.
Yeah.
And I know when Og said in the 4th scroll, I am nature's greatest miracle. I knew I am needed to be a part of it. And so while we were writing the book, inside Atomic Habits by James Clear, he quotes Naval Ravikant. This is a businessman icon. You know him well.
Yeah, for sure.
This is an icon of icons. And he said something that just jolted me. In order to write a great book, you have to become the book. So I immediately got on the phone and called an affirmation a videographer locally here. And I said, look, here's my affirmations. I want you to make a video of this, an affirmation video. And it's 18 minutes long. And what's the average length of a TED Talk? About 18 minutes. How many holes are in a round of golf? 18. Okay. What's 1% of your day? About 18 minutes. And it came back to me at 18 minutes. And I'm like, holy cow, this is amazing. And so I spend 18 minutes every single morning meditating, pondering, visualizing, living, and using what I call neurogenesis. That's a scientific term for whatever we think about first thing in the morning, like you with Norman Vincent Peale. And for me, it's the 7 affirmations in the book. And then I go further now. But I know that scientifically, I'm more prepared than 95% of the people in the world. If you'll take that, what are those baby nerve cells being born to say? Do we, as kids, we wake up with anxiety, you and I, or do we wake up and say, I am nature's greatest miracle? I've been texting you every morning, right? I am a recruiter because this is the time to recruit. This is the window to change the world right now. And so my paradigm of I ams just keeps getting bigger and more clarity. So when wow. The day Nathan passed, somebody called me and said, I will never forget that Be a Finisher talk he gave. So going back answering your question, how did you get here? And so I went back and I watched that again, and I'm thinking, first words that came to mind is in the New Testament of the scripture says, I am the author and the finisher. So Nathan was a finisher. I mean, man, this guy just never started projects that didn't get finished that usually had a couple of commas behind them. And so that became the theme. And last year, I was just about done with the book, and I had this aha moment. I literally went over to my writing desk, and I thought, the book's not done. There's something more. And I had this idea of the 7 levels of affirmations. And this idea that there's a visual aspect to it, there's an auditory aspect to it, there's a kinesthetic aspect to it. And so there's so many levels to writing a book. I think I told you last month when I was here that if I never sell another copy, what it's made of me, the process that it's brought out of me, that the fact that I know I am a magnet for miracles, and Einstein said that you either believe everything is a miracle or nothing is a miracle. And so I go all in on that everything is a miracle. And I'm down here with my son-in-law at a meeting right now, and in this building today, it's a miracle. He would not be doing this business today. He's a foot and ankle surgeon. I think I may have told you.
Yeah, you mentioned
He's going to work one day and loses feeling in his arm. Starts having I did 12 years of school, and I might not be able to do foot and ankle surgery. So I got to tell you, if your name and phone number is in my phone right now, there's a good chance you're going to get a call and get a hard recruiting pitch, baby.
It's going to be tough. So, interesting couple of call outs here. First of all, Kathy Schultz, who's in our studio right here. We talk about self-help books all the time, and her favorite self-help book, until she reads this one, is Atomic Habits. So James Clear, on that point of you've got to become the book to write the book.
And you've got to become the person, like Jim Rohn said, and I don't know if you need to edit this or not, but don't go make $1 million for the $1 million.
Sure.
Do it for what it'll make of you.
No, 100%.
Don't write the book for what you might get from it, but what it'll make of you. And Covey used to say he could tell when people asked him to write a foreword to a book, he could tell instantly if the author wrote the book for himself or his audience. Interesting.
So this is great. So you come into my office. In fact, I've got my coin here.
Here we go, baby.
You're carrying it?
Yeah.
So you came into my office just before the holiday.
Yeah, January 4th.
Or January 4th, I guess, just after the holiday. And by the way, mine clinks around. I have a metal wallet, so it clinks around. So I got to keep it in the plastic. But you walked in, and Dan, you gave me a signed copy of Awakening Who I Am. As you said, you wrote it. Ken Shelton, very, very famous. I don't know if they're called shadow authors or.
Well, he's a ghostwriter, but in this particular instance, he was my co-author.
He was a co-author.
He's done a lot of ghostwriting.
But he's done a lot in his career. But you came in, you brought it in, and we had a really impactful discussion for me, and I want to dive into this book. So let's spend some time. But you also gave me this coin. You said, Ryan, you got to put it in your pocket every day. Which reminds me to think about the I am statements, and so I've been doing the same thing. And by the way, for anyone listening, if I ever use some of these and I don't give you credit, I need to go on the record right now saying anytime I use these statements, it came from Dan McCormick in the book. So Dan, let's dive into it. So let's talk about how did we come. So in the book you go through 7 I am statements, right? I am a creator. I am intentional. I am present. I am worthy, I am capable, I am compassionate, I am a finisher, right? I want to understand, where did these come from? And again, if maybe take us through the process of how these came to be. Okay. And were these defined as you wrote the book, or these are like, no, I want to capture these principles because I've known these 7 principles for a long time and I just want to get them down on paper.
Okay. So I did something on the very first page that's different, if you want to turn there. I literally invite every single, and Ryan Holiday was such an inspiration for this. So I invite every single person to be my co-author. I want you to sign your name right there. I want you to go down the journey with me. I want you to write in the book. I want you to have all this stuff. So the idea of creation comes from the first verse in the Bible, right? It's just in the beginning, God created. Well, what do we do in the beginning of every day? We get to create. And I love saying this, and my wife doesn't like the credit, but she's such a creator. Like we're here with the grandkids right now, and she just creates memories and ideas and things. And so I think every day we get a chance to create memories, and you get to write them down. And so first one was I am a creator, and it comes from that first verse. And then the intentionality is obviously a huge power word, right? So let's really define I. I means exist. Am means with God. What follows I am follows you. So if you think about the life of people that battle with defamations and self-deprecating thoughts, the anxieties that we have about our height, our weight, our look, our skin, our bank account, our job, our career, the car that we drive, all that stuff, right? I just know that the more intentionally you import I am affirmations and you strengthen the conviction to number 3, this is really powerful when we say I am present. You know, when we look at a lot of people, there's people that their names are on the wall in this building. They're recognized as being star achievers. And yet, you know, we could look at the last couple years as difficult, right? Challenging economically. We could look at all the different things that have happened globally. We could look at the fires in LA, all the different things. But the paradigm of some is still that it's hard. And I would invite people to change that paradigm and say, how do I fix my present right now? Because generally and historically speaking, this is where Dr. Benjamin Hardy comes in. When you look at your present and you look at your identity, most people would look at me and say, well, that guy does new skin, right? Or that guy likes golf, or that guy likes yoga, or whatever they would say about me. That guy likes books, right? So when you look at your present today, how do we make your present better right now? It's to make your future bigger. And when you make your future bigger, your present changes. And then you can look at your past and say, hey, well, all that stuff happened for me, not to me. Relationships, finances, bad partnerships and businesses and things that just happen, and say, that happened for me. And so that present thing is a huge, huge one. And then I got to worthy. And I thought I am worthy is a really interesting one because I kind of look at it as the kind of the keystone of the 7. It sits in the middle. It holds everything up. And at the end of the day, Ryan and all our Team Elite friends and aspiring entrepreneurs that are watching, no matter the amount of money or success or fame you get to, if you don't feel worthy, it won't matter. So I think saying I am worthy is a really, really important part of that. And then I get to I am capable, because it is very, very true that you are just as capable. I mean, let's look at some of the people that had what we would say really rough starts in life, but their names are on the wall here, right? And then I get to I am compassionate, and I found this to be really interesting. I thank the Augmandino Company for this, Dave Blanchard at the Augmandino Company for this, because they use the science of axiology to measure the power of words and the strength of words. And so my 14th grandchild was born just a couple years ago when I started writing the book. And my daughter named him Jude. And I thought, instantly, Jude 1:22. The entire scripture teaches me, and it says, and some have compassion, making a difference. So I gave Jude the mantra for his life right there. I said, Jude, this is your mantra for life. You are going to make a difference in people's lives. And so I think that the science of axiology gives us compassion and empathy are 2 of the strongest words ever measured mathematically. And then finally, Nathan, I am a finisher. It will change your workout. It'll change the book you're reading. It'll change your relationships. It'll change the investments that you make. It'll change everything about who you are if you make I am a finisher a staple in your household. My wife and I, it's like, because I have a lot of flaws, like she liked to be packed well before the trip. I'll pack 5 minutes before the trip. You know, I'll finish when, it's not time to finish there. So clean the closet, sweep the garage, do whatever. But being a finisher is an incredible quality. And I think Nathan Ricks maybe lived his life to teach me that principle. So many others, but that is one that I just love. So Ken and I, when we were crafting the book, you know, he did the 7 habits and we thought, why 7? And we write about it in the book, why 7? Because 7 people can remember and 7 people can do. And 7 is the number that is complete and perfect. So let's go with 7.
Well, and 7 is make your own luck, lucky 7, right?
Exactly.
So, but you got to go make it. I mean, Dan, there's so many elements of that we could dive into, and I'm checking. We got 9
we might
minutes.
Do part 1, part 2.
Well, maybe we just do one per principle, and we'll get there. But I want to save a couple of minutes on what's next, so just to talk through that. But I think what you've put out here as a co-author authorship with both Ken, and I guess it's a trio now, right? Because each of us go through the book. Defining and taking, what I've liked about it going through myself is it's caused me to stop and really think about, what does I am a creator mean to me? What does, and all the way down to I am a finisher. To your point, what struck me on the I am a finisher, and I didn't realize how impactful Nathan was in forming that. But I will say, Nathan Ricks, so just before he kind of retired from this and stepped into, by the way, making a phenomenal value to his family moving forward, beyond anything that he'd done before, just plateauing. He went on a tour, and he gave his 14 principles of success, and I wrote those down while we were in Argentina, and I'm just typing on my phone while he did. So I still have those notes, and I reflect on those about once a month. And he does talk about this, but being a finisher, what I loved about when I went through the book, the finishers to me is, and you go back to the Alpha and Omega, the beginning and the end.
Yeah.
Being a finisher is actually what matters. Everyone begins everything,
that's right?
New Year's resolutions, 82% of people have already given up. It's January 31st, right? Have already given up. But to your point, if we can really build that attribute of, no, I'm going to finish everything I start, that's unique. And that's probably, I don't know if it's 1 in 100, if it's 1 in, whatever,
right.
18% of people, whatever it is. But I loved how in each of these, I could think my way through, what does that mean? What is, I am a creator of what? So for me, my daily is, I actually am still focused on, I am a creator, but of what? And I'm trying to go deeper and deeper into that. And I love your idea. You mentioned it on our call last week that you have book stands, because I have the same thing on my nightstand. I've got books open, and it's still stuck on I am a creator. So I got to move through it, but this is going to take me a while to get through it one by one. But I guess my question for you is, as you go through these and if you define these principles, were these things you gathered over time and you're now writing them down, or were these things through the process of writing the book that you said these are the 7 elements?
Through the process.
Yeah.
I know that when Og said, I am nature's greatest miracle, and then I started diving into the I am affirmations, and I started just gathering all those thoughts. I mean, it's pondering, it's praying, it's meditating, it's writing. You like to be able to get into that flow of writing, and I think that is a really beautiful thing. And that's why it took 2 years to say, is this the right principle? Is this what I can change my life with? Can the reader become my partner? As you said, I love how you said that. There's really 3 of us. It's me, you, and Ken, right? And then when the next person reads it, it's me, Ken, and them, right? So it's an awesome thing to think about. And so, I liken the pages that are open there for your additional notation, because if you think about it, an addict may have a different I am need today than a mission-driven entrepreneur, right? An addict or somebody struggling in a relationship. So you might write down different things of your I am affirmations. I have hundreds of them written in my affirmation journal, but I am a recruiter is the newest one.
I love it. I love always building. And by the way, thank you for putting blank pages in the book, because I always write on margins. It's nice to actually have a few pages on this.
A couple things about designing a book is really interesting. I wanted to be able to read it. I have 61-year-old eyes, so I put 13 point, right? I wanted margin spacing because I like to write in books like you. And I know I wanted to, I thought, man, a lot of people when they first get a book, they sign their name at the beginning anyway. So why not just make you my co-creator and sign it right there?
You might as well do it. Make it intentional.
Exactly.
Okay, so Dan, what's next? What's next, right? So you're fired up right now. You're in, you're moving, you're growing, your business is awesome, you're recruiting. But what's next in McCormick's journey? What's the next plateau that you're shooting for?
Yeah, that's a great question. I think that I'm always looking to stretch, the stretch goals. What are the next things? So the bridge in that book is the visual, the auditory, and the kinesthetic. My daughter has a disease called Susac. I write about it in the book. I interview her in one of the I Am Affirmation Spotlight stories. There's 7 spotlight stories in the book. And one of the doctors we found when she was at her worst many years ago now was a doctor that specializes in sound, frequency, and vibration. World expert. And I'm like, this guy's 45 minutes from us? How do we get in to see this guy? It was a game changer for her. But at the time, I wasn't the one sick, and I wasn't really dialing in on it. And as I'm finishing the book, I'm thinking, this is bigger than anything maybe. And that's dialing in on your frequency. And when you talked about your word for the year, which I'm so happy that you chose that word, because everyone in the world can benefit by saying, I am a creator every day. And you can say, I am a co-creator. But to get your frequency aligned, you know, the earth, they like grounding, right? A lot of people like grounding these days. You go to the beach, take your shoes off, do your yoga, lay in the grass, do whatever. And there's a reason for that, because there's a frequency to the earth. There's a frequency to your hearing. There's a frequency to your every move you make, everything from the microphones that we got going on right now. And I heard this incredible quote. And the quote was to Paul McCartney. What makes great music? He's got a little experience in that.
Yeah.
And he answered the podcast host, it's all frequency. And so I just started geeking out when I heard that phrase. And so now I'm writing another book. It's called The Frequency Flow. Okay. And how do you stack? We talk about sensory stacking at the end of the book. And how do you just keep stacking all of these things? I mean, I don't want to leave one stone unturned, like you don't want to leave one stone unturned when it comes to meeting with the team about making great products for your skin. There's not one. We don't just use vitamin C and 180. We stack all the other ingredients that can help. Why would I want to use just one tool in the toolbox to make my life vibrate at the highest possible levels, to help me attract the most incredible people, to lead, to coach, to train, and to live at total peace and know that I am just as worthy, deserving, and capable as anyone else on the planet of accomplishing anything.
I love it. I love it. And by the way, everywhere you go, wherever you walk, I notice how you connect with everyone you come across. It's really I used to think it was a talent. Now I think it's an intentional effort that you do. But it's pretty cool to watch you do that.
There's something interesting about shaking a hand. That's why Zoom's not all there.
Sure.
To shake a hand, to look someone in the eye, to know where they're coming from, to let them know you care. I love shaking a hand and seeing people here for the first time.
So good. Well, Dan McCormick, thank you. We just got into it, and I can't wait to dive deeper. But encourage everybody, Amazon, get your book. You can get it across basically anywhere you want to look for it.
Audio, video, Kindle, whatever.
As Dan said, he doesn't care if he sells another book.
That's right.
He's on to the next book, so
Exactly.
it's fun. But thanks for being here, Dan, and honestly, just thanks for being a friend and someone that I look up to
Really appreciate
in your
it.
journey. So
Awesome. Thanks for the invite.
Okay.
Godspeed to everybody on the journey.
We'll see you next time.
Thank you.